Let me start with the question, what does it actually mean to age well? We all know people who seem to get older, but never old. They're curious, they're kind, they're somehow more alive with each passing decade. And then there are others, those who retreat, complain and shrink their world. Here's the thing, we're living longer than any generation in history. The average Australian today will live well into their 80s, but longevity without vitality isn't much of a win, is it? So welcome to this episode of Demographics Decoded, the show that unveils the trends shaping your future. I'm Michael Yardney, and I'm joined each week by leading demographer Simon Kirstenmacher, and together we dig deep into the data to uncover the trends that are shaping our economy, our communities, our future prosperity, and what these means for your business, for your investments, and for your future prosperity. So today we're decoding what it really takes to age well, mentally, physically, socially, and financially. We'll look at some wisdom from Roger Rosenblatt's witty book, Rules for Aging, and Simon, I'd like you to add your demographic lens to see what the data tells us about how we can put all this into action, Simon.
Fantastic. Let's look at how aging, one of the most common topics in demographics, actually is done better, so to speak.
Well, interestingly, you've taught me over the years that demographics is a great crystal ball about what's going to happen with aging. So, as I've already said, if you're a business owner or an investor, this is going to be pretty important. And even if you're not at the point yet where you're worried about aging, there'll be others in your family or people you know that are going to be in that area as well. So we're living through a demographic revolution at the moment, Simon. We're living much longer. It's actually lifespan's age jumped, what is it, about 30 years or so over the past century?
That's about right. Yeah. So we are living much, much longer. Yeah. If you will, a whole full fat adulthood that we now live longer.
That's an interesting way of putting it, Simon. It is actually another adulthood, another period, much the same as our parents used to have.
It's a full fat new stage of life that didn't exist. We plonked this on, and so therefore we must now reset things. So we sometimes said in the past that if you live longer, you have a long life approach. That means you hang out in previous life stages longer as well. That means we push out childhood a bit longer. So we are children for longer. We are adolescents for longer. And then we are, of course, adults longer, but we are also older for much longer. And so it is important to age well, which does not just include your physical health. It very much also includes it includes your finances and so forth, but it also includes your attitude towards your life and towards the world around you.
So I guess this extra bonus adulthood could either be a gift if you use it right, or a burden depending upon how you use it.
Exactly. And so, of course, and that's exactly the challenge, is that we do not just want to live longer for the sake of it. We don't just want to be plonked into machines that can keep us alive endlessly. We want to live better for longer. And that's where those rules come in that we collected here, because they are simple, maybe kind of simplistic even rules, but they reflect deeper truths about how we can age as humans.
Well, I came across this book by Roger Rosenblatt, and I'll leave a link in the show notes to that, where he's called the book The Rules for Aging. And I'd like to just talk through a couple of them with you so that we can share our thoughts about it. And his number one rule is it doesn't matter. Simon, this is one of my favorites. We spend half our lives worrying about what other people think, what they say, what they didn't say. And in fact, that happened to me over the weekend. I do remember I sent somebody a text and he didn't respond. And it worried me. And I thought, is he angry with me? Is he cross with me? Have I upset him? What's going on? And I actually did get a very nice response. Close to 24 hours later, he probably just didn't have his phone on over the weekend. But it actually disturbed me and stirred me. It just brought this point home. It doesn't matter. At some point, you've got to realize most of what we worry about doesn't matter.
No, and in a sense, it is the great liberation, is to understand that neither does the world evolve around or revolve around you. Neither does it matter, because you are not the center of attention in any other than your own life. So all the other people, they don't really care so much about you. And we do, of course, have actual data about this. We do know that if you grow older, you tend to have what we consider better emotional regulation. And that means you are becoming less and less dependent on outside influences to understand what you feel about yourself. We sometimes even say things like, something like self-confidence comes from the self, comes from within.
Yes.
If your self-confidence does not come from within, but comes from external sources where you are constantly chasing the next compliment, the next like on social media, then you're actually not free. You are a victim to the approval of others, left, right, and center, and that is very much not a freeing life to live. So to understand that, and of course, it is a bit tongue in cheek to say it doesn't matter because other people matter. We
Yeah, of
are
course.
social beings and so forth. But ultimately, the idea that we better not sweat the small stuff is absolutely crucial because you only have one life. So why waste this one glorious opportunity to to be this embodied spirit in a human body on worrying about a text message, so to speak?
Now, this hasn't just got to do with aging, of course, has it? Because people at all levels have either got an internal locus of control or an external locus of control. Those with an internal locus of control don't need others to validate their approval, success, how well they're doing. But there are still a group of people who've got an external locus of control. They need other people to keep patting them on the back. That's not a fun way of going around life.
No, and it is something that you can gain control over. So this is not something like, it's nothing you are born with. You might have a certain kind of tendency in your personality, that's fine, but you can gain control over these kind of outlooks on life. And that's something, as we hinted at here, it tends to improve with age. And if you look at the 5 regrets of the dying, these kind of research where people just say it is one of the number one regrets
Yes.
in life is that people say, I worried too much about what people think about me that actually do not matter that much to me. And that is a wasted life.
It is. So rule one of aging well might be don't sweat the trivia, save your energy for what really matters. And rule two is exactly what you just said a moment ago, Simon. And his rule was nobody's thinking about you. Now that may sound a bit harsh, but it actually is freeing if you don't really matter what other people think or care.
Yeah, I think the underlying wisdom here is to understand that everybody that you ever come across in a subway, in a work context, in your family, everybody is living their own life. Everyone is the hero of their own journey, and they spend most time worrying about life from their perspective. And you are but a supporting actor at best in their life's play. So do not worry too much about this. Be aware that you do not matter. Yeah, there's this old, I think it's an old Christian mythic saying where you say you're simultaneously nothing but dust and ashes. You do not matter. And at the other end, you're also at the same time the center of the universe. These are physically actually true, both. And you need to
Yes.
understand that both of those things are parallel truths. And I think this is the part that says you're nothing but dust and ashes. You do not matter. And this too can be freeing because it means that not every single move and every single gesture that you do, that you don't do, they are not world-changing events. You will more likely than not be forgiven or forgotten, and that is not a bad thing.
Interesting. So the rule of nobody's really thinking about you will hopefully stop some of the people watching this and listening to this chasing approval from others. And maybe you could reinvest that time into more meaningful relationships, hobbies, learning, doing things you like. Simon, rule number 3 I'd like to discuss is change no more than 1/8 of your life at a time. I guess at a time when the world glamorizes reinvention, Rosenblatt says, slow down, evolve more gently.
Yeah, and it's understanding that you go. It's the New Year's resolution kind of phenomenon where you say, "New year, new me. I'm going to change absolutely everything. I'm losing weight. I'm meditating. I'm reading. I'm getting a new career done, and so forth." And it's all at the same time. And these things, they take too much energy. You can't take it all on. And quite often, you have quite a bit of baggage with you, and not all of this baggage is bad. So when you say you're this radical reinvention at 60. It sounds brave and fun and exciting, but ultimately we know that these incremental transitions, you instead of hard retirement, you ease into retirement. Maybe you downsize not just from this gigantic McMansion to this tiny thing, but you move into a middle-sized dwelling first, building new routines one bit at a time. If you want to lose weight, just change your breakfast routine, for example, and see, and build from there onward. this is much smoother. Psychological adjustment is better. And I'd always think of this as I prefer, personally speaking, evolution over revolution. Evolution happens in very, very slow but steady increments. And revolution, it always has a lot of blood on the streets as well. And the peaceful guy that I am, evolution over revolution, it is for me. So I fully agree with this third rule here.
So the lesson from this is phase your change, don't force it. Rule number 4 that I got out of his book was keep a sense of humour. I actually, and I think a lot of people underestimate that. Humour is medicine. I remember in the old Reader's Digests, there used to be something about humour and jokes, and that humour is the best medicine, they used to say.
No, it is, and it can also be. So you see this when you talk with frontline workers, when you talk with doctors, emergency doctors, ambulance drivers, and so forth, medics in war zones. They have an incredibly dark sense of humor. But you need this kind of humor as a coping
Yes.
mechanism. So it really has a psychological power, and of course, it literally just makes you happy when you laugh a bit. So therefore, I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy and so forth as well. Even when people say this is a bit trivial, we live in more important times. But I say no, there is a certain kind of wisdom in there. To actually do not take things too seriously and sprinkle in a bit of humor at time, because otherwise the seriousness of life can be overwhelming. And I well and truly view life as utterly and completely absurd. And my own human existence is kind of weird and funny, entertaining to me. And so yeah, that's how I view news as well. I understand the severe tragedy of news and so forth, but I also just see the comedy in kind of us repeating dumb mistakes again and so forth. And so I'd say rather we keep up the ability to laugh, and it's much better than lamenting about all the bad things that happen.
So rule 4 is keep up your sense of humour. And I guess my message is don't take yourself too seriously, because everyone else stopped taking you seriously years ago, Simon.
I guess they did. That's good.
Number 5 from Rosenblatt's book was pursue virtue, but don't sweat it. I think what he's saying is stay kind and ethical, but avoid sanctimony.
Yes, and it's the idea that you more or less roughly set your navigation tools into the right direction and move more or less in this direction. You will not be perfect. So that
Right.
is, we can look at all those big trends. If you zoom out, those big trends move into the right direction. And so then you see that we do ultimately get stronger, kinder, more peaceful, healthier, richer over time as a collective. That does not say that within this there isn't absolute catastrophes happening, that poverty is still a thing, that every now and then people earn a good living, and then through a series of unfortunate events, their life crashes down. These things are real and they happen. But ultimately, things move upwards, and so should your outlook on life. So don't be an absolutely self-righteous person for the sake of it, but try to be a good neighbor, if you will, a good citizen, a good coworker. And you won't be perfect. You'll have bad days, but ultimately move more or less into the right direction, and that's fine. We get obsessed with having the perfect streak. That's the idea of you see this on a weight loss journey when you say I must lose 20 kilos, and at first it works really well. You lose weight every time you step on the scale, and then you start stagnating or gaining weight again, and you go like, well, screw it, and out the M&Ms come again, and so forth. That's not the point. It's not about having a
You've been
perfect streak.
following my journey, Simon.
I remain fully in favor of M&Ms.
The chocolate does come out again.
It does, but it's the idea is like sometimes good enough is just that. It is good enough. You do not need to be perfect. And it is, we live in a world of endless life coaching advice and so forth. That is all well intended. Yeah, I'm actually kind of a fan there as well, but you do not need to be a member of the 5 a.m. club to get up early in the morning. You do not need to eat that frog every day early on to get, your structural things all right and so forth. It is fine just to roughly move into the right directions, because ultimately that bit by bit, ultimately moves us into the right direction, even if we stray off path.
Rosenblatt's rule number 6 is yes, you did. I guess what he's saying here is take responsibility, and then just move on. Don't keep trying to rewrite your past.
Yeah, there's a certain kind of obsession there, isn't there, with trying to rethink our past, because our past is actually what it is. We can reinterpret it. That's fine. But ultimately, we then risk just living in the past. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
No good, and the people that really age well, they kind of accept their path, not in any kind of fatalistic way, but they go, so that happened. I might have screwed up, I might have succeeded, but now life moved on, and I'll move on, and I'll try to accept these things that I've done, and so forth. But that's fine. Yeah. And so I think the happiest older people that I know, they came to peace with who they are and who they were. And
yes.
that then leads to who they will become. So I think that's perfectly fine to accept that, yes, you did it. And yes, that is part of my story. And now I move on.
I like that one. Rule number 7 from Rosenblatt is don't expect life to be fair. Simon, that's a hard truth, but it's always the way it is. Life doesn't owe you anything. It was here long before you were.
Sorry, I was just laughing at this rule because this morning I told my 5-year-old that he has to have breakfast instead of sweets at 7 a.m. in the morning. And that was a big problem. And so, yeah, life isn't fair, little fella. You just
Yeah.
need to eat your cornflakes before you eat your M&Ms. This is all about M&Ms here. But it is a freeing attitude. Is that you know that bad things will happen to you. And this is, you will be cheated on, you will be divorced, you will win and lose fortunes, you will have certain sicknesses, whatever it is. All those things happen to you sooner or later to some sort of degree. We don't know. And this is not happening because God is punishing you, or because you were a dickhead or something. This is just life. That stuff happens, and it does build resilience if you know that this comes at you. And again, I think once you lived through enough disappointments, big or small, in your life, you can accept that, and you can understand that this is part of it. And of course, the challenge is to not fall apart while
Yes.
these bad things
Yes.
happen. So we're not saying there are no bad things. Things can be absolutely brutally
Yes.
unfair and extremely rough on you. And yeah, but there is, you still, while there might be things so much out of your control, you do have at least some sort of control over your attitude when you're facing this. Yeah. So this is sound very Buddhist here, but life is but suffering, and you are in full control of your emotions, because emotions but arise from you, and they're not you. You're not your emotions. You're just experiencing them. But yeah, I think that's a fun lesson that I try to teach my kids. It isn't fair, and it is, you want to teach those lessons with kids in tiny little increments. You don't want to traumatize your kids, but little macro disappointments can actually build strength over time.
Now, we often or usually talk about demographics in this show, Simon, but having said that, these messages, which started off talking about how to get older without getting old, rules for aging well, really relate to all ages. If you're a new viewer or listener to this podcast, this isn't the sort of feel-good thing we always talk about. In fact, more commonly, we talk about the trends shaping your future. But this is a bit of a fun show to listen to over the holiday season anyway. But if you'd like to understand more about how demographics are going to affect business, the economy, the housing markets, go back to other shows of the Demographics Decoded wherever you're listening to this podcast. By the way, just click the follow or subscribe button and the automatic download button so you get Simon and my show every week. Now, Simon, just before we clicked record on this, you told me about the next session you're talking to for clients. What do you do as part of your role as a demographer? Before we get on to a little bit more, there's a lot more I want to talk about the aging, but I just thought let's have a quick break and explain about demographics.
Yeah, when I'm not recording podcasts with you, I am a public speaker, a corporate strategist on demographics. I'm either in front of boardrooms or in front of big conference events, 100 plus times a year, to discuss whatever the world looks like through the demographic lens for the audience in question. So this is strategic work with boards is great fun. We do this with local governments. We do this with business audiences, big and small. And yeah, the fun stuff is that we can really specialize all this research or narrow it down to the audience quite precisely. And that's the fun bit. Yeah, and there's, of course, a lot of this kind of more social, consumer, behavioral research, which links into our podcast topic today, that feeds into the harder data stuff that we do as well.
Fantastic. Well, if people are interested in how you can speak for their organization or business or institution, I'll leave a link in the show notes how to get in contact with you. And if you're interested in growing your wealth to give you more financial freedom, more choices in life in the interesting housing markets that we're experiencing at the moment, my team at Metropole specialize in giving strategic property and wealth advice. We've just recently won 3 awards at the end of last year as Australia's most trusted and best buyer's agent. But we're much more than the buyer's agent. We safely help you grow, protect, and you pass on your wealth through strategic advice. And if you'd like to have a chat with one of our wealth strategists, I'll leave a link in the show notes to have a chat with the team at Metropole. Why not let us help you plan to become the property investor you plan to become? Now, Simon, getting back to the rules of aging well, Rule 8 was stay curious. I think this is really good because curiosity keeps you mentally young. There's always new things to learn about and to find out about.
Absolutely. And this is where we have truckloads of research on curiosity, delays, decline massively. So people who keep learning, is it a language? Is it even stuff like Sudokus and crossword puzzles are proven to have positive mental impacts. Just stay engaged with current affairs, with your profession, whatever it is. That we talk about neuroplasticity that is maintained. Then your brain keeps working. You do not want to let your brain rest physically as the joints start hurting a bit more occasionally, but it is absolutely important to stay active. Yeah. So it also connects the generations if you do it well, because if older adults manage to keep up with the new ideas, they can then communicate with the younger people on those issues, and all the while pass on the wisdom that they accrued over the decades. That definitely helps. Yeah. So stay curious, stay active, stay reading, and so forth. Yeah. Don't give up.
Fantastic. So I guess learning isn't just for the young, it's actually the secret to staying young. Now, rule 9 from Rosenblatt was keep moving physically and socially. Movement does matter physically.
Exactly. So physically, it also, in a sense, socially does. So obviously, you want to remain physical activeness. So you want to walk, cycle a lot, whatever it is. Start something like
It
Pilates.
gets harder as you get older, Simon. The balance isn't the same.
No, it literally does, and I see this on my iPhone all the time when it talks about walking stability and so forth. There's all those settings that it want me to activate. But so the idea is, yes, it gets harder because your body is just wear and tear, use and so forth. This isn't getting better, but you can really slow down aging. This is. I think by now everyone knows this though, that lifting weights, stretching, walking, eating healthy, these kind of things are absolutely crucial. You live in your body and your body ages with you. Your body will definitely age, you will definitely die, but you have a certain kind of impact to how much you do this. And of course, social mobility there is important as well, because one of the big risks at age is that all your friends die. And so the idea of maintaining friendships and also, without sounding too strategic about this, cultivate younger friendships with younger people. Have a
Yes,
couple of friends
yes.
that are a couple of years or decades younger than you, because you will be forced to have new ideas thrown at you, and they are statistically speaking less likely to die before you. So that's also helpful.
That makes sense, doesn't it? Of course. The next rule is have a plan, but be flexible. Now, this applies to life, but also to investing. And I just mentioned a moment ago at Metropole, we help you plan to become the investor you plan to become. You can't count on the government for pensions in the future. Who knows when you're going to be able to, or how you're going to be able to take your super if it's going to be taxed. So I guess you've got a plan, but then expect for your plan not to go to plan because things are going to crop up, Simon.
Absolutely. That's part of the big demographics decoded mantra is, demographically speaking, we can look into the future with quite a big level of confidence for the next couple of decades. And I would urge governments to take these long-term views into consideration. I would urge individuals to take these long-term views into consideration when making decisions about their own lives. But of course, this isn't an exact forecast of the future. This is a broad direction. And so within this, you need to be very, very flexible and you need to adjust your plans. And the idea, though, is if you have a plan, the surprises will be a little bit less surprising. And that's helpful. Yeah? So don't be too rigid. These are the rigid people who have a diet plan and so forth that is to the calorie exact. And so they can't enjoy a birthday party with friends. That sucks the life out of the joy out out of their life and so forth. Don't be that rigid. Yeah, have a somewhat decent plan and kind of sort of stick with it. Is again, as we said before, good enough is quite often just good enough.
Now, there's a rule I'd like to throw in that he didn't, but it's actually forgive yourself and others. Stop holding grudges as you get older. They don't have any purpose anymore.
No, they absolutely don't, and they anchor you in the past. They are but a weight on your shoulders, and there's nothing to be gained by it. You're not you think that you're protecting yourself from future misfortunes by holding a grudge, but it is well and truly just additional weight that you lug around as you climb the hill of life and so forth. Yeah, and we do know that not holding grudges, that having emotional releases and so forth occurring, you then have better physical and mental health. Yeah, this is directly linked to the quality of your own life, not holding those grudges. Yeah, so don't be the elephant that never forgets. It is helpful just to let bygones be bygone and say, I'll just move on. And this, of course, includes yourself. This is not just holding grudges
Yes,
about the,
yes.
because it can sound so pathetic when you think about your primary school and there was this big evil bully who bullied you and was mean to you. But in a sense, you're now decades older and you still hold a grudge against a 6-year-old. That is pathetic. Yeah, it is not worth holding on to those grudges. Otherwise, you log this kind of insult that occurred decades ago with you into retirement, into your death. So that's not worth it. Yeah.
Well, as we go through the rules of getting older without getting older, so to speak, another one is don't compare. Don't compete. Simon, this is particularly relevant today in the social media age, the Instagram age, and older people are on Facebook, probably more than Instagram and TikTok, but they see what other people are doing, and there's really only the highlight reels, not all the bits on the cutting room floor.
It's brutal. So the idea is that you should, run your own race. In gym language, we say lift your own weights. It doesn't matter what the person next to you lifts. You don't need to. You need to look at your own weight and progressively improve that. That is absolutely good enough. And of course, social media is absolute poison for that, where you're constantly comparing yourself with the and filtered best parts of their lives, and you're looking at this while you're sitting on the loo. Of course, you suck in comparison. So do not do this. It is well and truly not worth it.
Now, there's lots more rules about aging gracefully, but I'd like to finish off with one about practice gratitude daily. That's probably one of the simplest. In my mind, it's maybe the most powerful. It's something I do every day to make sure I start my day on a positive note, Simon.
Yeah, and this is very well ingrained across cultural or religious traditions. People who say a prayer, the idea of a daily prayer where you literally say thanks.
Yes.
And you show gratitude for whatever in that context God has provided you. There's a reason why societies integrated this kind of thanksgiving, so to speak, to a person's life. And part of the problem is that we forget about this because we've done away with religion for all intents and purposes, and we in a sense poured the baby out with the bathwater, and we also left these gratitude exercises behind. This, of course, reemerged in the popular psychology literature as gratitude journals that you should keep. Yeah, and installing a little thing like this, reflecting with your kid when you give them to bed on a daily basis, like what were a couple of nice things that happened in the day. It's very, very helpful. It's extremely powerful, even though it sounds small. And if you do this throughout decades, you well and truly are able to age well. And yeah, it is worth integrating this into your daily routine.
Well, Simon, you're a demographer. Let's put a demographic frame on this. How are Australians positioned to age well or poorly?
Well, overall, we are positioned to age well, rather well, because we maintain riches in this country. So we are better off. The idea of poverty in old age is probably at the risk of increasing a bit in Australia, but at a much lower rate than anywhere else. We are still rich enough to take at least somewhat care of our elderly people. But of course, I see big pressures there. I see systemic change is needed there because we are, as I said in previous podcasts, we're doubling the 85 plus cohort in just 15 years. So by 2040, we will have, instead of 590,000 people 85 plus, we'll have 1.2 million. And half of them, statistically speaking, need care on a daily basis. So how do you do this? That's very expensive. It's labor intensive. It's tough to get this right. But still, we have better chances of pulling this off than, for example, my birth country of Germany. So it's still a reason to be grateful to live in Australia rather than Germany, if we look at that particular data set.
So I guess we've got to get our politicians, our institutions to design better communities, more walkable neighbourhoods, so older people can communicate, to go out there, better social spaces where they can interconnect with other people, and even different forms of housing accommodation so people can remain connected as they get older.
Absolutely. This is where the systemic thinking kicks in. Once you understand that something like social connection happens on or is impacted by many levels. It depends on where you live, what type of property you live. It depends on where your friends are located spatially. And then if you stop driving, for example, all of a sudden walkability becomes hyper important for your quality of life in old age. And if we take these things into account from the get-go, we can make better decisions as individuals how to live our lives, but it also gives us as urban planners, as politicians, a better chance to pull a couple of levers into the right direction. You can't just say it's the role of the government or a urban planner messed up or something. It's the idea of you understand all of those systemic levers that can be pulled and you try to push them a bit into the right direction and then hope that the system as a whole grows healthier.
Well, if you've been listening to Simon and me today and you know somebody who would benefit from this, could be a family member, could be somebody at work, please tell them about the Demographics Decoded podcast. We tend to talk more about the hard data and how it's going to shape the future, but I think today's conversation was a very meaningful one, Simon. I guess if we had to sum it up, aging well is about acceptance, about curiosity, about connection. That came through a few times.
Absolutely. Yep. Stay curious, thankfulness, and other people matter, but they don't matter nearly as much as you think in the negative sense. So all of the negative stuff you're allowed to let go. You're allowed to forgive and let go. And then this should actually improve your quality of life in old age.
And I guess the other thing is perspective. We've spoken about Warren Buffett's idea about the ovarian lottery before. You've won the genetic lottery if you're watching this, listening to this today, because you're living in this era at a time when you've got so many options as you age, and you're going to be able to enjoy your life. So have a listen to these rules again, or have a look at the book. I'll leave a link in the show notes. Don't wait for retirement to practice gratitude, to build friendships, to move your body, or to laugh at yourself or at others. Start now, because aging well isn't about adding years to your life. It's about adding life into your years. Thanks, Simon. Look forward to having a chat again next week.
Awesome. I'll see you next week.
And for those of you listening or watching, if you enjoyed today's podcast, as I said a moment ago, share it with somebody who's planning the next chapter of their life, or maybe somebody who's maybe just needs reminding that getting older can actually mean getting better. And that's the only request Simon and I ask of you. Just tell one other person about it so we can help more people understand how the demographic trends are going to shape their future. We'll catch up again next week. Thanks, Simon. This Demographics Decoded podcast has been brought to you by Metropole Property Strategists. We provide a complete range of services to help our clients safely create intergenerational wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you're looking to buy an investment property or your next home, why not have a discovery chat with one of our wealth strategists? Just go to metropole.com.au and explore your options. You'll find we're much more than just another buyer's agent. We provide a complete range of services, including property advisory, wealth advisory, home buying, buyer's agency, property management, renovations, and development management services. The team at Metropole will help you with frameworks that I've fine-tuned over 5 decades, and we've been helping clients with for well over 25 years. We're big enough to tip the scales in your favour, but still small enough to care. In between these Demographics Decoded shows, you can follow me on social media, and I suggest you also follow Simon Kirstenmacher. You'll find him regularly posting on all social media platforms. And thanks for spending the last little while with Simon and me. I hope you got some benefit from the show. And if you did, and you know somebody who may also benefit, please tell them about Demographics Decoded. There's a share button on every podcast app. I hope you're going to be doing them a favour, and you're definitely going to be doing us a favour, helping us in our quest to make as many people as possible aware of the demographic changes that are going to be shaping their future. And of course, if you don't currently subscribe, we'd love you to. And of course, any of the information that we've been sharing with you is general information, because we don't know your specific circumstances.